All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Tuesday, August 11th, right here on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson. And this is All In Horns presented to you by Rogue Sports Network. Jake, we are approaching closer and closer as every day passes to the start of the college football regular season. Today's episode is going to be a great one for the people today. We've got Pete Sousa joining the show today, and he's going to be giving us a little bit of a college football preview. We're probably just going to bounce around from conference to conference, what teams he likes, what teams he doesn't like, which teams are rated correctly, which ones are a little overrated, maybe some that are underrated. We'll just go through it. We don't know how long. We don't know what this episode's going to be in terms of length. When we get going, it could just fly off the rails, and who knows? We might be here for 20 minutes. We might be here for an hour and a half. I don't know what Pete has in store for us, but we're excited to have him on the show. Jake, Texas just had their spring practice. We talked about it on Monday's show, but things are starting to ramp up in Austin a little bit.
Yeah. The first scrimmage is always kind of the when more you feel like you start to get more of an idea of what the depth chart is going to look like, and so obviously we talked in length about it in yesterday's episode, but it just makes the excitement continue to grow. And more than anything, I'm at the point and kind of have been at the point where you're just crossing your fingers to see no more injuries in camp. But I think every program starts looking forward to those first scrimmages you get internally, because when you follow some of those insider sites, and if you know people within the program, you get a lot of notes of what people are looking like, what's going on with the team, what's going on with the depth chart. And that's when you feel like you start to get an idea of what that 2 deep is going to be for week 1.
Yeah, hey, I want to remind everybody real quickly. I know we talked about it on yesterday's show, but Jake and I have assumed the responsibilities of also running All In Cowboys. So we'll have our All In Longhorns channel along with our All In Cowboys channel. Those are going to be 3 episodes a week, including an immediate reaction episode. So if you love to see miserable Cowboy fans losing throughout the regular season, come to our channel. We'll be on there every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, whatever night they play on, giving you an immediate reaction after the game. But we'll also have a couple episodes sprinkled in throughout the week, whether it's previewing or recapping what happened. Any breaking news that happens, we'll cover it on those episodes as well. But like, share, and subscribe to All In Cowboys, along with subscribing to this channel. If you've made it this far into the episode, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment. We'll try to interact with you as much as we possibly can. But without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce the man of the hour. Pete Sousa joins the show. He's a longtime play-by-play broadcaster, someone I can definitely respect in that aspect, because that is the profession that I always have tried to fall into. But Pete, thanks for joining the show, man. And I guess we'll do a little bit of a college football preview.
By the way, let me stop you right there. I got my first contract with ESPN when I don't even want to tell you how old I am now. I like to think I look young. But I was in my 30s. I was in my 40s actually. So just know that, like, you got time. All right.
Yeah. No, hey,
keep hanging away.
It's why I've decided to do every single day of recording podcasts with the guy above me right now on your screen. So it's like just trying to get the reps in, trying to get those out. And but yeah, man, I realized at a very early age, I was a short white kid who was slow and not strong. So I can't play sports, but damn it, if I can't talk about sports, I can do that. And so I started just diving into the history of sports and trying to figure out the ins and outs of being able to talk about it. And so here I am today, at least living out, partially the dream. But Pete, thanks a lot for coming on, man. We definitely appreciate it. Everybody, while you're on the topic of it, go subscribe to the Pete Sousa Show. It's a great show. Been on it myself a couple times. Love talking to the guy, and I'm gonna consider him after this episode a close friend, hopefully. But yeah, man, we'll jump into it. But yeah, tell us a little bit about. I know you're out in the woods right now, man. That looks like a relaxing evening outside.
So I'm up here, and I'm actually in Long Island, New York, in Southampton with my family. We've been coming up here to my uncle's place since I was a real little kid. A lot of great memories, and it's harder as you get older to carve out time to get together with people. So we've done a pretty good job of like setting aside a weekend in the summer where my family and we can all come up here. So it's a really special deal. So in Southampton right now, I'll be back in Texas tomorrow night because, as you guys know, I mean, we're really with week 0 on the 23rd. My first game is the 28th, a Thursday night game at Houston, SFA in Houston. Like I've been preparing for that like at times this weekend because it's fun, right? Because it's college football and we can't wait. And 2, because like it really is that time of year. Like it's fast approaching. And I can't wait. And really like we can all talk about it. Like even being up here, like in New York, like, yeah, it's awesome. Like we watch like, just from a sports perspective, like watch the Phillies and the Rangers last night because most of my family's from Philadelphia. And then, preseason football, watch Shadur on Friday, which was cool. And then watch some Giants yesterday and some Jets. But like being back in Texas before the college football season is where it's at. I mean,
Nothing like it.
And there's nothing like it. And I didn't know that before I moved to Texas like 8-9 years ago. And it literally changed my life. Like the way that I approached the sport of college football. And I went to the University of Richmond. I was a college football player, got a full scholarship. I was a bust. I got injured, but that's a story for another day. But I'm a football guy. I'm a football guy. Or at least I thought I was. And that was until I got to Texas. And then I kind of learned the rhythms of being like a hardcore football guy.
Well, in Texas, I think what adds to the buzz too is the excitement for high school football. High school, there's nowhere in the country that is like that. And I don't know if you feel that, I don't know how involved you are in keeping track of anything high school related, but that plus the college buzz, I think it just makes it at a completely different level compared to really any other state.
Well, dude, that's a great point you make. In Texas, the high school football, it plays such a key role in everybody's consumption of the sport. And that's really how I got my start. I called games in college at the University of Richmond, basketball games. But when I was in Texas, an opportunity came up for me to call during COVID Friday night football because the UIL, as they have like a real stranglehold, and rightfully so. They do a great job on Texas football and its coverage and where it goes and who can watch it. And during COVID, they basically were like, okay, we're going to allow Friday night football games to be broadcast on TV because not as many people are going, And so at KWTX, not too far from, where you guys are or where you grew up, too far from Austin, I started to do Friday night football that first year of COVID. And it was amazing. Of course, it's Texas. Everybody still came to the games.
Oh, yeah.
It was a win-win, right? As long as hopefully everybody was all right. I think everybody was fine afterwards. But one of the guys, it's so cool, Rashawn Sanford. Like I called a couple of his games, and now he's a starting tailback for Houston. And so I get to call his first game, and that's the first time that's ever happened for me. So I'm like, oh, this is awesome, And that's Texas high school football leading into big time Texas college football. I mean, Houston not on the stage of a Texas or an SEC, but they play some pretty good football in the Big 12, and I think Willie Fritz and I think that team is going to be a lot better this year.
Yeah, no, and I love that you're tying in high school into college because I've called games at Waco Conley for the last 4. This will be my 4th season.
Yeah.
And I had, Jelani McDonald as quarterback up there, and then Kobe Black, 5-star athlete, both committed to Texas.
Yeah.
And so now I get to watch them on Saturdays play at Texas, and I have a podcast covering the team, and we're constantly talking about starting safety Jelani McDonald and starting corner Kobe Black, and it's like, I've been covering these guys for almost 7 years now, so it's fun whenever you get to be able to do that.
It's really.
And what's incredible too about high school football in Texas is it's not just the 6As. I played back when I played in high school in Texas, it was only up to 5A. I was an offensive lineman. We were in 2A. Cameron Yo was the state champs. They were in our district. We played against them. Their best player on offense, D.D. Westbrook, who nearly won a Heisman at Oklahoma. Yes. I mean, so you get incredibly talented guys really at every level. And that's
because it's football. Football's in the DNA all across the state, and certain guys just don't have the opportunity to play on those 6A stages. But I promise you, if you're good, they will find you, especially in Texas. You know, you're
Oh,
not that
yeah.
fine because that's one of the first places people go looking.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into college football preview. I know that's what we're all been waiting for. Our palms are getting a little sweaty, just antsy, getting into this talk. So, hey, Pete, where do you want to start? I was thinking kind of conference by conference. We can kind of start with the major four, the Power Four conferences, and kind of just break down what the Big Ten and the ACC, Big 12, SEC kind of look like, and who we like out of those conferences. It doesn't have to be extremely detailed, but just some of the favorites. Let's go ahead and just start with the Big Ten up there, and kind of what we think of what they look like. I mean, early on, at least with the coaches poll, you've got Penn State highly ranked, Ohio State highly ranked, Michigan. Bryce Underwood will decide to kind of see if their offense can kind of get going a little bit. I think a dark horse in that conference, Illinois. Any teams that kind of jump out to you in the Big Ten?
Well, no, I think Illinois. They're probably, I think, the most experienced team in the country. Now, what does that get you in today's college football? I'm not quite sure, but they know the rhythms of a Big 12 schedule, and they know, I think they're, together. I mean, like a lot of the guys are returning, and you have, like I mentioned, that great experience. You're set at quarterback. The only problem for Illinois is you got to play, you got to play in the Big Ten, and that's tough. I mean, as good as you are. So I like Illinois as a dark horse. You made a great point about Michigan. I think, 2 years ago, they lost like 14 guys to the NFL. Last year, I think they lost like 6 or something like that. So they have a lot of talent coming back, which is great for Michigan. But of course, you got to start. I mean, it's hard not to talk about Ohio State. And that, first of all, everybody is whetting their appetite for that first game, right? Ohio State, Texas, of course. And until somebody beats Ohio State, first of all, the Big Ten, they got the last 2 champions. And that's, at some point we have to look at that and be like, because I still am, I mean, truth be told, and I work for the Big 12. I think the Big 12 is amazing, right? Quick plug, I host a show Inside the 12 for the conference, and it's on in markets all over the country, Big 12 markets specifically, and you can watch it on the Big 12's YouTube channel. And I think it's going to end up on ESPN Plus and Turner Sports, like True TV or something. But all that to say, I'm a show for the Big 12, and I love the conference. And I got to promote where I can.
Go for it. Hey,
the SEC's, they're still the bad boy to me. They just are. They always will be. They're the baddest MFer on the block. And, to think that the Big Ten has won the last 2 titles, to me, that does not take away from how good the SEC is. It just propels the Big Ten up to around the same neighborhood and same stage, where I'm like, wow, I mean, you cannot deny it. And it's funny, right? Like Michigan, if they're back in the mix this year, it just makes everything so interesting, like the Big Ten, I like Illinois as a dark horse. You got to convince me somebody other than Ohio State would emerge. But the cool thing about that is I know it's not a conference game, and it won't severely impact Ohio State and where they go as far as the college football playoff is concerned. But that first game against Texas will tell us a lot about Ohio State.
Yeah, interesting thing about Illinois is their schedule, I think, makes it a very great chance for them to make the Big Ten title. They don't play Penn State. They don't play Oregon. They play Ohio State. And then their next toughest game is probably in Indiana, just based off preseason polls.
Yeah.
And that shapes.
Yeah.
And they get Ohio State at home as well, which I think shapes up well for them. But I'm curious if your thoughts on Penn State, because personally, I get the hype because they were a good team last year. I don't get the Drew Aller hype. I think he's what held them back from making the national title last year with his play in the playoffs. And so I was kind of curious on your thoughts of Drew Aller and kind of Penn State in general.
All right, here's my take on Drew Aller, because I think you summarized it perfectly. And also when you think about the fact that they've just failed, right? James Franklin has, against, marquee opponents. They have. I mean, I don't have the stat off the top of my head, but their record against top 5, top 10 is dismal. I mean, it's always one of those things that jumps out and grabs you. I would like to think, right? Let's be positive with Drew Aller. let's hope, if you're a Penn State fan, right? Like to what you said, Jake, like maybe last year was a huge part of his development. Like maybe like that he was on the biggest of stages, right? And we know the guy's got tools. Now, does he have elite tools? I don't know. And I think the one thing I could push back on what you said is hopefully his maturation process, we saw it last year, and hopefully he'll get better this year. Because you're right, because the same Drew Aller isn't going to get it done, because if you're Penn State right now, you're talking about winning a championship. You're not like talking about making the college football playoff was great and getting down to the Final Four, amazing. But now, like expectations have been raised, and so you're trying to win a title, and that's where Drew Aller gets put to the test. And your theory could prove to be true.
Yeah.
You'd hope that his maturity kind of fights that.
And I think a team that I kind of put in the same category as Penn State, and I don't know if a lot of people do, but now they're in the same conference. Last year, they won the conference, their first year being in it, is Oregon. But Oregon's a team, much like a Penn State, who it seems like they get to the mountaintop, but they can never get over the hill. They can never get on the other side of it. They can't really ever finish with a national championship or where their season wants them to be, whether that be.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And that shows, by the way, how deep the Big Ten is, because my dumbass didn't even bring Oregon up.
Yeah.
And here's one thing I'll tell you too about Oregon. Like, I think that the more time Oregon spends in the Big Ten, the more ready they'll become to get over. I think, right, to cross the threshold. Because as much as like the Pac-12 was a prolific conference and there was a lot of like good teams and good football, it just wasn't as deep as the Big Ten. And I think the more you get calloused as a program and an understanding, especially with a guy like Dan Lanning at the controls, like I think Oregon will become tested and will get over the humps like at some point, but I don't know that it's going to be this year. But I agree with you. They got to get the reps down in the Big Ten and become battle tested to be put over the top,
Yeah. In Oregon, to me, the craziest thing is some people talk about them as like a blue blood type school in the modern era, but they haven't won a national title.
No,
and
a lot of it is the money, Jake. I think from like the Nike affiliation. I mean,
they're a thorn in Texas's side in the recruiting. I mean, Kelvin Banks originally committed to Oregon. Texas was able to flip him, and Kelvin Banks was a big part of Texas kind of turning things around with Sarkisian. But Oregon came into Texas and took Jacorian Moore last year, who's a 5-star number 1 wide receiver, I think, in the country. I know in Texas, I think he was the number 1 overall player in Texas. And Oregon jumped in and took him. So Oregon definitely has been a pain from the money side of things. And it seems like Dan Lanning is the guy, but Oregon is kind of, I mean, Texas kind of in that spot right now, though, to be fair, of they're getting close now. They're finally back as everyone liked to talk about so much years ago. It seems like they're finally back to being a contender, but Texas and Oregon kind of, in Penn State also is kind of there right now with making the Final Four last year of needs to get over the mountaintop. And I'm curious if we're going to see in this NIL era, and this is kind of just a general college football thought, I think we're going to not see as many repeat champions. It feels like the top end of the talent is getting more spread out. Now, does a Boise State or anyone like that have a chance in the NIL era to legit make a run and win a national title? Probably not. But I do think we're going to see much more parity as far as who is winning versus seeing a Georgia or an Alabama type run like we've seen in the past.
I totally agree. And especially with the group of 5 comment, I think it's going to be, you really have to sell me pretty hard on a group of 5 team, just being able to sustain the momentum. And you're probably going to have to play the whole way through the college football playoff, right? You're probably not going to get a bye now, especially the way things are constructed. So yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think we'll see a group of 5. And I do think the talent pool is more spread out, and it's way more transitional and transactional. And one of the things that we're going to miss now with college football, and I think we're going to start to see it a little bit, is even if you transfer to the hot school, or and let's say Ohio State, they get all the best players, there's still something real special about the symmetry between a guard and a tackle when they're running a trap play. And that is not like stuff you can put in a microwave. Like, that is like repetition from summer camp all the way through one season, then through the next, and like spring practice. So I think that is somewhat glossed over. And I don't have the answer to that question. You know what I mean? Like we are in a brand new frontier. I could be dead wrong. That's something that a football coach who knows way more than me told me. You know what I mean? And I can think back to my days. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's probably right. You know? So there's a lot. More will be revealed, dude. That's for like about what you just mentioned, Jake. Like all over the country, like where the talent goes, right?
Yeah, I know. I agree, especially with the playoff statement that you made. It's not that I don't think in Arizona, like people want to say, like they want to compare it to March Madness. Is there going to be a Cinderella team? Is there going to be a George Mason that makes it to the Final Four in the college football playoffs? I think your Cinderellas are going to be your Arizona States that almost beat Texas. I think you might have an Indiana upset of Notre Dame in the first round, but to get through Notre Dame, Georgia, Penn State, and then Ohio State, for an Indiana to do that 4 games in a row, I don't think that that's a realistic expectation. I don't think that's, but I do think you could get 1 game, maybe at most 2 games.
Yeah.
Your TCU even getting to the national championship, I think, was a quote unquote Cinderella run. So
it was.
yeah,
The run didn't be sustained too long, right? That old format, it's like bang bang, you know what I mean? Like you're in, like it's different now. Like I just don't think a team like that, and I don't even want to say TCU. I'm saying like straight up group of 5 can get through all that competition. I think you just get worn down. I think guys get hurt. I just think that's a tough road to hoe. That will be one of the greatest upsets we would ever see. Like a group of 5, like if a group of 5 team this year were to win the national championship, I don't know that we could compare it to anything. Like I really don't. It'd be like the U.S. beating the Soviets. You know, something like, I mean, like in hockey, like something. I mean, it's just that's something that nobody's talking about, and probably for a really good reason.
Yeah. Hey, let's go ahead, switch to the let's go in your neck of the woods. Let's jump in the Big 12 and who you like, some standout teams, players that maybe aren't getting talked nationally, but some guys and some teams that you really like to maybe make some noise in the college football world this year.
Well, the Big 12 is a sexy conference, like from anybody's perspective, because of all the high profile quarterback play. And so you've got guys like, you know, Sawyer Robertson, you've got Baron Morton, right? You've got Rocco Becht. You've just got so many guys, and those are just a few off the top. You know, you lose Jake Retzlaff, which is a real backbreaker for BYU. You'd hope that for them, somebody will emerge to just grab that job. But BYU was a team I liked a lot with Retzlaff returning, just because I thought he was the kind of guy that, like, not necessarily going to blow you away, but like he was finding ways to win. And those guys, it was clear, would have like run through a wall for him. You know, that changes the dynamic there. Colorado, I still think they're going to be pretty good. Like I've heard all kinds of interesting stuff coming out of Colorado about, you know, Juju Watkins or Juju, I forget his last name. He's going to be the backup to Caden Salter right now coming into camp. But really, that the kid Juju is a 5-star. Forgive me on his name, but like he could end up supplanting Caden Salter, and you know that gives Colorado a whole different look. But that's a quarterback room that really nobody's talking about. But you still have 2 studs in there. So like overall, I think the hype around Texas Tech. What scares me is what we just talked about. Like you've got this like monster payroll and this amazing roster of talent, but like, will they gel? Like, how does that go? You know, it's really unpredictable. But you know, you have Texas Tech. I like a lot. I like Baylor a lot. I think Sawyer Robertson is like really due for a breakout season. Also for Baylor, just what happened. I mean, happened Sunday night. I know we're talking here Tuesday, but like, you know, or Saturday night, Dawson Prendergast, one of their really good running back, was lost to a season-ending injury. So that hurts. But they have Bryson Washington, who's their number 1, who is like really, really good. And Baylor's offensive line is really good. So, I mean, there's a lot. If you had to put a gun to my head and you said, Pete, like who's going to win the title, I think Texas Tech will get it done. I think you could see Texas Tech and Baylor playing in that Big 12 championship game. The ball has to bounce the right way for obviously anybody who's going to play in a title game. But the Big 12 this year, I think we're not going to see as much parity as we did last year, which is good news for the conference overall. I think we'll have some studs, just some good teams that kind of run through the conference that emerge at the end of the year.
A couple quarterbacks you didn't even mention there. Connor Wigman at Houston, which is interesting, and then Sam Levitt. I'm curious of your thoughts on Arizona State because they seem to be kind of a preseason favorite.
Well, I mean, look, here's the one thing. I think there is almost a little too much hype around Sam Levitt. I think like a lot
we agree. We're on that same train.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, first of all, Cam Scatterby was amazing. Second of all, and this is one thing, like, let me pat myself on the back. Like, last year, I kind of like, when you're hosting these shows, like, inside the 12, like, I was like, I looked at the Big 12, and Cam Scatterby was playing awesome. Sam Levitt was like, he led the offense. He moved the chains. You know what I mean? He sustained drives. He did not blow me away. And late in the year, you got to remember, they were like way on the outside of the playoff picture looking in. And I was like, I think they have the makeup to actually make a run, right? And win the Big 12 and maybe get in there. But Levitt wasn't the reason. It was Cam Scatterby. And, even the pieces around Levitt, like Jordan Tyson is awesome. He's good, but I think I think he might get swallowed up by that pack of Big 12 quarterbacks this year, as far as like him being outstanding. We'll find out. If you think about it, teams that win late in the year that can win a Big 12 championship and can, they basically, I mean, you guys were this close to knocking Texas out and on. So that says a lot about the team as a whole and the Big 12 as a whole, because I think Texas is just unbelievable. So the conference is right there. Sam Levitt played a really good game against Texas, and he played a really good game against Iowa State. And I think we get so swept up in that, like late season bowl game success for these young quarterbacks. And I think we get a little over our skis sometimes in our affection for them.
Well, Arizona State and Georgia were the only two teams who could stop Texas's run game, which I don't think any of us expected Arizona State to do to Texas. And I thought, I mean, Arizona State ran the ball really well against Texas.
Yeah.
I thought I didn't understand the hype about Levitt's performance against Texas because I thought he was serviceable mainly with his legs, but he wasn't hurting Texas with his arm. Granted, no one did last year throwing the ball against Texas, but I didn't see the hype.
Came from their running back.
Yeah, the Cam Scatterbo had the biggest pass of the game.
I said their best pass play came from their running back. So I mean, I thought that Sam Levitt did a great job extending the pass. Or extending the pocket and kind of doing that sort of thing. But and I think we momentarily lost Pete. Hopefully he gets back on. But I'm curious what he's going to say and what we're going to get out of him. I was going to ask him in terms of the Big 12 and the college football playoffs. Jake, do you think that there are multiple Big 12 teams? Pete, we got you back?
Oh, we have him for a second. There we go.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hey, I was just.
She's not here, but I put her right to voicemail for you.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it. Hey, just real quickly, I was going to ask, college football playoffs. How many Big 12 teams do you think are represented in the top 12?
I mean, look, man, I'd love to see 2. I think 3 is pushing it. I think 1 it might be the reality. I think you could definitely get 2 teams in. I really do. I mean, I think. Because Baylor, here's the thing. Baylor could lose to Auburn, beat SMU, and still win the Big 12. You know what I mean? And lose a couple games in conference and still get to the playoff, right? And then you have another team who you hope just runs the table and is so good that there's no question about them making the college football playoff. But that is what will have to happen. Baylor is a team like, I like him in love with Sawyer Robertson. I love Dave Aranda. Their defense is going to be awesome again this year. And I think that is primarily because of Dave Aranda and his focus shifting primarily on the defense. But a concern for me for Baylor is their schedule and getting behind the 8 ball a little early. Like you could lose. I mean, dude, you could lose your first 3 games, I think, because no, 3 of your first 4. You're going to win that FCS game week 3. I forget who they play.
Samford.
Stanford, yeah. I should know that because that's probably going to be a Pete Sousa game. I can promise you, like that'll be. But you know, Auburn, SMU, and then Arizona State, 3 of their first opponents, like they're not walks in the park. So you could. It's not out of the question that they could be 1-3. You know, going into their second game in the conference. So that's something that I just think is on the table. I don't think it's going to happen, but like I think like to what Jake said about Illinois' schedule, I think Baylor's almost sets up differently. I think they have like the 30th toughest schedule in the country, or maybe more higher than that now.
Yeah, no, they've got a tough one.
Yeah, their first 2 games too. I mean, they're going against a playoff team in SMU and an Auburn team in the SEC, which we'll talk about here soon. That should be, I think, much improved from last year. I think that's one of the. I called that on our an episode the other day for us. I said that's the most intriguing matchup of week 1. I think the best matchup is Ohio State, Texas. I'm biased, but I mean, it's probably going to be number 1, number 2. But I think Baylor Auburn is the most intriguing one because we don't get matchups like that often in the early season and this year. And so I'm curious if you have any thoughts on who's going to win that game week 1 specifically.
I think Baylor will win that game, and I've gone back and forth. I think even like following the odds, I think Baylor was actually the underdog, like when the line was first set. Now this is like 2-3 months ago. I think they're now favored, I think, by 2.5. You can check me on that, Jake. I feel like they're
2 points for Auburn as the favorite right now, but I think Auburn opened up at 4.5 or 5.
Yeah, okay. So Auburn is still favored. So that to me is frightening, right? Just a little bit. I mean, like that's saying something. Now,
well, it also depends on which sports book you're looking at. I mean, they vary from
Yes. Okay. Appreciate that. But yeah, that's a scary game for Baylor. I think they win. Because I think Baylor is way better in the trenches than people give them credit for. I think Sawyer Robertson is really good. And it's a Friday night. Baylor hasn't had an opponent like that for an opening game. Honestly, I've been talking to people. You have to break out the media guide, but like their toughest opponent to start the season off was TCU when TCU was in the WAC. That's like the closest in the rearview mirror.
Wow.
So this is a huge opener for Baylor, and I would hope, as somebody who lives in Central Texas, they take care of business at home. But that could be a toss-up, dude. I mean, the fact that Auburn is favored just tells you a little something. You know?
Yeah. Well, I want to move on to the other conferences, and I'll mention this just real quickly because we'll talk about it next time we have you on because we will. But in terms of like a Baylor, you mentioned their non-conference schedule. How much it impacts these teams now to have a tougher non-conference schedule to elevate them possibly for a differentiator of, well, that's been something that's been weighed in terms of a college football playoff spot, and getting one of those last spots is how good was your non-conference win-loss compared to, well, if you just played cupcakes and you got to walk to an undefeated record until week 10, I think you're going to start seeing teams maybe balance their schedule out a little bit more to where, all right, maybe we know our conference isn't as strong, so let's front load it with a harder non-conference schedule at the beginning of the year. I don't want to get too much into the weeds of it, but I think that's kind of where we might be headed.
That's a great call, and I think that everybody hates the FCS games. I mean, like they've just been kind of a way of life, but you know, those money games, they don't do much for your college football playoff standing.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Well, hey, let's go to the ACC, and then we'll finish off with the SEC, and then we'll give a maybe your conference winners, and then kind of who you like national championship wise. But ACC, I don't know if there's a ton to talk about here. I think Clemson, Miami, the front runners. Is there anybody else that you like?
Georgia Tech, quite possibly, I think as a dark horse. Miami, I think I think they could make some noise again. But I honestly I just don't think the ACC is that good. I don't. And I think there's a bigger gap between the Big 12 and the ACC. You know, you rank the conferences. I think you could I think it's SEC, Big 10. I think it's Big 12. And then I think the ACC is a little bit lower than people actually want to wrap their minds around, especially in ACC country, which is now all over the country almost. Like I called a college basketball game and, at Stanford, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. ACC. Like I didn't screw that up. And trust me, I make my share of mistakes, but it's still so hard to wrap your mind around that. But yeah, I don't think the ACC they just don't knock my socks off as a conference that is very good. I just don't. I feel like they're overrated. Put it that way. I feel like they are. And but when you look at the conference, obviously it's Clemson. That's it. I think at the end of the year, Clemson gets a bid, and quite possibly nobody else does. I haven't talked about SMU again, or yet, but I think it's hard for Rhett Lashley to live back up to what happened last year. I just do. That's just my opinion. Almost like an instinct I have too. I've been wrong before. So we'll find.
I think SMU falls off quite a bit this year compared to last year. I kind of agree with you, Clemson being the top. I'm with you though. I do like Georgia Tech's program. I like what the coach is doing there. I like
he's great. He's a great coach.
They brought in Blake Gideon is from Texas as the defense coordinator. I'm excited to see what he does there with that defense. Haynes King, one of the more experienced quarterbacks in college football. And I just love the way they coach up their offensive line in the trenches. There's a reason they took Georgia to the limit at Georgia. And I think Georgia Tech, if it's not Clemson, I think Georgia Tech wins the conference. And I like the odds markets on them. You can get like plus 600, plus 650 on them winning the ACC. And I don't think that's a terrible bet. I love Georgia Tech this year.
It's not, and my man, Scotty Swingler, who does the Pete Sousa show with me. He's basically, he produces the show, but he's basically a co-host. We talk a lot, and he's really knowledgeable with college football, and he has Georgia Tech making the playoff along with Clemson. I think that there's certainly an argument to be made there that Georgia Tech could be that second team from the ACC.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that Florida State will be the odd man out on that in that conference.
It's the clock is ticking for Mike Norvell.
Yeah. He was granted a much longer leash than I think I probably would have given him, even last year, just because of the whole Jordan Travis. They had the potential of being a top 4 team a season ago and making the playoffs, and some people consider them a snub, even though they were undefeated. But so I think their donors and their money people, they're running the shots at Florida State, gave them enough leash last year. If they start off rough this year, he may not make it to week 5. It's got to be pretty short now.
I would have to agree with you. That's the one. That's the one. And I haven't even looked at him. It seems like Jake is the odds guy, which I appreciate. But I think if there's a gambling degenerate on this, I think I'm one, and Jake seems like he could be 2.
It's legal. It's legal here in Kansas. So I
have stories about guys just driving over the state line, right, and then driving back. But no, I think that you're exactly right about Florida State. What I mentioned about Norvell, and you never want to ever see anybody lose their job. But if there's one guy at a big time college that is like could possibly be let go in season, it would be Florida State if they got off to another abysmal start. It would be. No,
I completely agree. Jake, did you have something else on ACC or?
No, by the way, Florida State opens up against Alabama, so the seat could get real hot real quick.
Yeah.
Or Pete DeBoer, he could be on the hot seat after.
Alabama fans are crazy. They were furious last year.
Crazy. Yeah.
Well, I had this, when, and this is like such clickbait that I can't even. I'm just share it with you guys and people that are listening.
We're gonna clip this. I'm looking at 39:05. Let's clip it. Okay.
Like Bill Simmons, turn the TikTok camera on. But no, I think that. Well, I don't think. But when Nick Saban announced that he was thinking about coming back to college football or thinking about getting back into coaching, he didn't announce it, but it was. I think I forget who said it. I think it was McCoy. I forget who said it, but. And then Lane Kiffin kind of confirmed that he would probably want to get back into coaching. I mean, dude, he's either going to coach in the NFL or coach at Alabama, because I think that's the one college job that would make sense for Coach Saban to come back to, because he knows all the rhythms, he knows everything, and I think it's a little different if you go to any other program. And I believe, like you guys have, kind of hinted at, that Alabama, another guy, DeBoer, maybe on a short leash. That's all. That's all I'll say with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, we're already jumping into SEC play, so let's just dive right into it. The SEC, obviously, first year Texas was in there. It was the weakest the conference has been in about 2 to 3 decades. That's at least what was told to Longhorn fans, because Texas made it to the SEC championship. It was mostly the Maroon fans out in College Station that were saying that the conference has never been weaker than it is this year. The first year Texas is in the conference. So, but it is supposed to be I think a deeper conference. I think it was a bit top heavy last year. I think you had your 3 teams, and then there was a sizable gap between 4 and 8, and then you had the rest of the conference. I do think that it's probably a little bit more open this year. I don't know if I love Gunnar Stockton running the Georgia program. I do think that Georgia is still going to be Georgia, obviously, but I don't know if they're going to be the powerhouse. We don't know what we've got in Alabama for maybe the first time in 2 decades that we just don't know what Alabama's going to bring to the table. LSU's kind of a question mark. You got Garrett Nussmeier, but no one knows what Brian Kelly's capable of doing and screwing up that job in Baton Rouge. So we know, hey, we probably know 2 things. A&M's going to be 8-4, and Texas is probably going to be the favorite.
Yeah, well, look, I think Texas, the only issue for Texas, and you're always going to have a target on your back because you're Texas, right? And people, I think, always, especially you guys being new members of the SEC, members, they want to knock Texas off, right? Get them back in line, quote unquote. But at the same time, Texas now does, after last year's success, they have a target on their back, right? And that's a game where every opponent of theirs is going to take it awfully seriously and approach with a chip on their shoulder. So Texas will probably be getting just a little bit extra this year. That being said, I think that they're my pick to win the conference. I think LSU. It's funny watching I don't know if you guys have watched. I only watched a little bit of the SEC Netflix, and
I'm about, I think, 4 episodes in, something like that. Yeah.
So I just watched part of the first episode, right? And I almost, and something pulled me away from it. It's not like I stopped watching. But Brian Kelly's kind of likable. So how about that?
I did not like him. It made me like him less.
Really? Okay. See,
but I will say this. Part of it is because he's at LSU, and to me, his just demeanor does not match what LSU is.
No,
LSU is Coach O, not Brian Kelly.
100%. He's a guy from Massachusetts, and I've always thought that. I've always and he's a guy from Massachusetts that acts like he's from Louisiana. So that kind of it's like one thing if you're like, hey, I'm a guy from the Northeast. It's almost like I just did with you guys about coming and being in the state of Texas with college football and high school football. Like, you got to act like you're kind of be a part of something greater than, not like, oh yeah, I've been a part of this the whole time. That's again, we're just kind of talking smack here, but yeah, I've never loved him. I didn't like him in Cincinnati. I never liked the way he approached interactions with players, especially in game. That always turned me off. But I guess he's a good coach, and he seems a little more likable watching the show, to the point where I almost don't want to watch it anymore because I appreciate not liking him. That was
Hey, here's my favorite thing about college sports. I think more so than the NFL or any professional sport. Well, maybe not the NBA. I think there's a lot to not like about the NBA, but you have to have your villain roles. You've got to have your rivalries. You've got to have people you don't like and that you're rooting against constantly. And I think college football has done the best job of creating characters. And I think it's the coaches. A lot of it is because your players come and go. Especially in today's world, transferring from school to school. But now, going to the NFL, you've got a minimum of 2 to 3 years with these players to hate, and then they're off to the NFL. But the coaches, you can hate these guys for. I mean, ask an LSU fan how they feel about Nick Saban. I mean, they're gonna. There's hatred. There's pure hate, and I think that's what makes college football really, really stand out from any other sport.
And the fan bases.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I there's a question in there somewhere, I guess. But where are we going with the SEC this year? Who's a standout other than Texas? that might be a surprise team, someone that might not be as heavily talked about going into the year?
Well, I mean, look, I hope you don't hold it against me if I say it could possibly be A&M. I think I love Marcel Reed.
All right, interview's over, Jake. Let's go enough.
Well, look, here's the one thing, okay? We were talking. I know it's apples and oranges, but Jake, you mentioned Connor Wegman when we were talking about the Big 12. That dude's a 5-star quarterback who literally, I don't know that he failed Texas A&M so much as they failed him. So many different offensive coordinators, I think like 3 in 2 years, 2 head coaches. And then he finally, like, his injuries catch up to him and he's playing crappy. So then Marcel Reed takes over, and he was phenomenal. I mean, good, like, the record spoke for itself. He did a very good job, right? Like, leading that team. I could tell I got some disagreement here, but just hang in there with me.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Elko is a good coach, right? And like, as much as we, Texas A&M is another one of those programs. It's like, when are you guys gonna pop, dude? Because I mean, at some point we have to be like, man, this is actually Texas Tech's year, or Texas A&M's year. Sorry. But like, I think we could be there this year. So you asked for a dark horse.
Yeah, yeah.
Not my favorite.
No, you're good. You're good.
At some point, we're going to be sitting around and we're going to be like, oh, A&M finally came through this year. And I'm not saying they're going to be a power forever, but I think that they're due to have a big year.
The money that their program has, the size of the program, despite not doing anything for 100 years, is incredible. And I actually do agree with you. And I said this last year, even going into the game, I do think they got a real football coach this time. And I don't think they've had a real football coach in a while. Yeah. I don't buy into Marcel Reed as much, just because I think as soon as he has a bad game, A&M already has this I think they have a 5-star freshman that's already being talked about, and being like, Marcel Reed struggles. The fan base will immediately call for it. And he started really good. Marcel Reed did. He struggled down the stretch of the season. After the LSU game, the games he started, they started losing. Granted, the Auburn game was not his fault. That was the defense. Against Texas. Texas was the best defense in the country last year, other than maybe Ohio State, in my opinion. And obviously A&M didn't score an offensive touchdown in this game, but A&M has the most returning production in the SEC.
And I think we can agree, all 3 years of the Mike Elko era, like, he has exceeded expectations. Like, so if he continues to, like, move up the ladder like that, well, I don't know. Just keep an eye on him.
No, hey, last year they beat Texas. They're sitting in the SEC championship game playing against Georgia. They were that close. They were 10 points away from
the University of What Ifs. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Yeah. No, but what do you think about John Mateer in Oklahoma this year?
Wow, dude. Okay. Like, that's a great question, because a buddy of mine, so Jim Nagy and I used to work together like 20 years ago, right? Nagy's their new general manager of football. He's the guy that came over from the Senior Bowl. So for Nagy to take that job, I believe, like, he sees the vision that these guys can be really good in the SEC. You mentioned Mateer. Look, dude, I think it's unfortunate, but last year said a lot about the state of Oklahoma's program. The Oklahoma, I know you can't stay in the Big 12 because it's a money play, right? Going to the SEC. But at the same time, like, damn, man, Oklahoma looks like a team that belongs in the Big 12, and Texas looks like a team that belongs in the SEC. And I thought the separation last year, and how seismic it was, really is a pretty good indication of I think, where Oklahoma and their reality will be in the SEC. I think you could have another season where they underperform. I do, like, in the eyes of their fan base, right? Sure. I mean, they're not ranked in the top 25 for the first time in like 20 years or something. And that, again, is just more writing on the wall. Their schedule is like brutal.
Yeah, so, they didn't do them any favors in their first couple of seasons by getting them that schedule.
No, so I'm not in love with Oklahoma this year. Strictly, it's all circumstantial. I just don't know that they belong in the SEC. But to be an SEC power, I don't know if they belong in that conversation. They're going to have to show me first.
They're a ways away right now, to say the least. And as someone else with a very, very probably the hottest seat in college football, I think would be Brent Venables.
Yeah.
And then Billy Napier at Florida, right up there as well. Florida has to perform this year. Florida also with a team I would have probably brought up to discuss more, but their schedule is just brutal. There's a big imbalance in the SEC scheduling that I think they need to figure out how to kind of fix, because you have an OU and a Florida that just have a much harder schedule than I think anyone else in the conference.
Yeah. Hey, as an ESPN, employee, do you have any, are there murmurs or conversations about any of these conferences kind of trying to balance the powers that be with the scheduling? Because, that was one thing that as me and Jake, we said it on our podcast, Texas got pretty fortunate last year with the scheduling compared to what Oklahoma got. I'll take Texas' schedule 10 times out of 10.
It's weird. And maybe I hear more scuttlebutt about basketball and scheduling there than I do about football.
Yeah.
Because I'm fortunate, when you call these games, you actually are, I consider myself, I mentioned my history with football, but it was brief, albeit, and it's not like I was a superstar, but I was around a lot of coaches and conversations as a young man, learning a lot. And now back doing that again, when you call games, it's just you and your color analyst and your producer talking to the head coach, the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator. So I do learn a lot. And I haven't heard too much about like the scheduling gripes or anything like that so far. I mean, I know fan bases have a lot of opinions, and they should. But, and I'm sure Oklahoma's pissed with the way their schedule looks this year. But then I would talk to Oklahoma and say, well, what are you doing going to Philadelphia to play Temple? I don't know how that happened. As somebody who's from Philly, I appreciate it. But I'm like, what in the world? I don't know how that happened. I was like, did they have a 5-star recruit from Philly? They were trying to get it. Hey, we're going to play. That makes zero sense to me. And that's, so, I mean, if you're going to give me crap about Oklahoma's schedule, right? If you're an Oklahoma fan, I'm going to ask you, well, you picked this one. I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the way coaches should be looking at it is, we're good enough. We don't care what our schedule is. It shouldn't matter. We should be able to beat the team in front of us regardless, and
if you're in a conference that you chose to be in.
Correct. And then it only, to me, you start hearing about the schedule week 10, week 9, you've got 2 or 3 losses on your schedule. Well, I mean, look at our schedule, you wouldn't be saying that if you were undefeated,
So last year, all the teams complaining about Texas's schedule were the teams on Texas's schedule losing to Texas, or it was an Ole Miss complaining about Texas's schedule while losing to teams that Texas beat on Texas's schedule, like in Kentucky,
Florida, weird how those teams beat your team. And then you're like, well, Texas has a weak schedule. Well, you lost to those teams that Texas already beat. So, hey, before we let you go, final predictions for the season. If you've got, conference winners, if you don't have to give us 12 teams for the playoffs, but who you like winning a national championship this year?
I like Texas winning the national championship, and I'm not just being like a homer. I think Arch Manning is that special. The weird thing about I've just never heard such a consensus of people who know so much about football speak so highly of a quarterback. And we saw enough to I guess, be like, oh, okay, like this is really, he's that special. And I think that we will see more this year. And I think that Texas is always, they always have the Jimmies and Joes, dude. I mean, I know some years more than others, but they always kind of have that like floating around, right? Like, and you go to a game of Texas, it feels like you're at the state fair. There's something special happening there, and I'm talking outside of Red River. I'm just talking like every game feels like that.
Yeah.
Home game of Texas. And I think that Sark is like, he's stable. He's right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he's a stable coach, and he's an amazing coach. And, he rebuffed NFL interest. Like, I just think that there's a lot. And that defense, you guys have so many studs. I think Texas is very well suited to win a national championship. Yes.
If their offensive line can gel quick enough? Because that is the big question for Texas, replacing 4 out of 5 starters.
Yeah.
If the offensive line can play well enough and they can stay healthy at the offensive line position, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I think what I've said about Texas, and I think maybe you'll agree with this. I think this year their ceiling is much higher than the last 2 years under Sarkisian. I do think their floor is lower though, as well,
You do.
than the last couple of seasons.
See,
Just because of the I'm an offensive line guy.
Yeah,
Just because when your biggest question is offensive line, that does scare me in the SEC.
it is very scary, but I would push back with this. Like, I think you have probably one of the best coaches in college football who keeps getting better. And like, there was a time when it's out there, it's public. Sark couldn't get out of his own way, but like, he's still getting these jobs. Like, he's always been like a whiz kid, he's always been a great like leader of men. And now he's just running at, 150% high octane version of this dude. I think it only gets better. I think that's a guy we could be talking about in 20 years as one of the best college football coaches, that we've ever had a chance to witness. I believe that. I think he's awesome. I really do. And I think he's better.
Hey, you're not getting any argument from either one of us
look at the coaches at Texas prior to Sark. You know what I mean? Like, I think like this guy, like he's like a guy like Tom Herman isn't even in the same room with Sark.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, and here's how I even look at it. If you want to go further back to say Mac Brown, who did have success, won a national title at Texas. I don't think his X's and O's come close to what Sark does. I think Mac Brown's success came on the recruiting trail, getting talent and getting guys to play together as a team and to be a family. And the culture that he brought to Texas was championship level culture. Sark has done that, but now he also has the X's and the O's, and he's got the football mind on top of it. I agree with you. I think Sark has the potential to be an all-time college football coach up there with the Sabans, the Bear Bryants, you name it. Just because you haven't won a national championship doesn't mean you can't win a national championship. I mean, Saban was 50 when he won his first or something like that. So,
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Well, hey, Pete, thank you so much for joining the show, man. We're pushing an hour here, and so we appreciate your time. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. I know you're with your family, so we can't thank you enough for jumping on with us and joining the show. But hey, that's the college football preview with Pete Sousa right here on All in Horns. Thanks a lot, man. We appreciate having you.
All right, fellas. Hey, I'll be hollering at you guys to have you join me on my show. Probably here pretty soon, probably ahead of the first game of the season. So I appreciate
absolutely. We'll love to be on there with you. And hey, before we let you go, tell everybody how they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on social media, Instagram, Pete Sousa. I'm not hard to find, but yeah, the one thing is people in Big 12 markets, and of course you can find it on the Big 12's YouTube channel, and I think it's going to be on True TV. But that Big 12 show, Inside the 12, is a great show, and it's going to be a great opportunity for people to watch this year because of all the quarterback play. And we'll have some big time analysts come on breaking down quarterbacks. Like I know my buddy Todd McShay is going to come on from time to time because this is a special quarterback class. So make sure you just find Inside the 12 and check it out.
Fantastic.
Appreciate you guys.
Oh, thank you. That is Pete Sousa with the Pete Sousa Show, also ESPN broadcaster, Big 12 broadcaster. And giving a lot of his time for us today, Jake. So want to appreciate it. But I think that just about does it for the show today, Jake. Any comments, any extra before we log off?
No, waited too long to get Pete on. I knew when I saw you on his show last year that he would be a very fun conversation, very knowledgeable, obviously broadcast games, and maybe the funnest power conference too. I mean, the Big 12 is fun for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they were fun when Texas was in it. It's always been a fun conference. It may not be the most dominant conference, but it is a fun conference regardless.
And so definitely someone we'll need to have on again, come mid-season or come close to playoffs to kind of discuss how the year's turning out and just talk. I don't think we're ever going to have a short episode with him. I'll put it that way.
I don't think that's a possibility either. All right. Well, that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all. Again, don't forget, like, share, and subscribe to All in Horns. We come and release these episodes 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And we'll give you your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns right here on All in Horns. As always, ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.